All right, at this point, we're going to take questions from the audience. If any of you have questions written on index cards, please send them up to me. I've got two in my hands now, and I'll start with them, and then I'll address the others as they come up. For those of you in the STEM club, if you have any questions that you want to ask, we're going to try to make sure we recognize you all because this is your facility. Right in the upper left corner, STEM, and we'll be able to recognize that it's from you all. Thank you. I'm going to ask a question. Each one of the debaters will have 3 minutes to give a response. This first question goes to Mayor Tillman, so you'll go first, Mayor Tillman, and then Mr. McAleer will have 3 minutes to respond to the same question. Mayor Tillman, you said Wolf Eagle study results and TCEQ results are similar in their findings. If so, how do you answer TCEQ's findings that monitoring data provides evidence that overall shale play activity does not significantly impact air quality or pose threats to human health? This is from Natural Fall Outlook 2013.
Well, thank you. You know, if you just look at the data on itself, you can see that there's some exceedances of the long-term effect screening levels. You know, I'm not going to count on TCEQ or any other governmental agency to make a decision on my family for me. This is America. We're free. We're free to make those decisions on our own. And, you know, if you combine the chemicals that we find with the nosebleeds that my children would get, that Mr. McAleer keeps bringing up, then I felt it was in the best interest of my children for us to move out of there. So, you know what? That's the decision I made, and I made the right decision. Immediately after we moved, the nosebleeds immediately stopped. The asthma that my son had had since birth, which had caused him to need a nebulizer every day, that wasn't required anymore. And so we made the right decision by moving. And, you know, if TCEQ, if Brian Shaw, if Mr. McAleer want to move to Dish, Texas, or any other place in the oil and gas development area, have at it. You know, this is a free country, and you should be able to do what you want to do, and I should be able to move my family without being criticized for it, and I should be able to share my experience to others without being criticized for it. This is America. I fought for this country, and I love America and I love Texas. But at the end of the day, we get to make those decisions on our own. And so, have at it, TCEQ. Have at it, Brian Shaw. I actually put out an offer to all of the CEOs of the big oil and gas companies to come and live in Dish, Texas. I put that out, and you know what? I didn't get any responses. But you know, we actually had free Dish Network in Dish, Texas, and so you could catch all of the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball games and everything. And so I thought it would have been a really good deal. And we might have even crowdfunded to pay for it. But nobody took me up on that. And strangely enough, most of the people, at least in the higher echelon of the oil and gas companies, live over in this part of town, not over on that part of town. I think that's pretty telling. And there wasn't anybody from TCEQ that lived in Dish, Texas either. And so I made the decision I made, and I'm glad I made that decision. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it all over again.
Mr. McAleer, 3 minutes.
Well, I'm confused with them. I'm from Ireland, you know, we get confused easily, but I am confused. I'm obviously not as smart as Mayor Tillman. I mean, I thought I heard him 5 minutes ago using this TCEQ results to back up this fraudulent report that he commissioned. Didn't we hear that? We could, you know, if we could run the tape again, as they say. I thought he was saying the TCEQ backed it up, and then when he was asked the question with a brilliant quote, actually, maybe you could quote that, give us that quote again about how the TCEQ said the water was all safe, the air was safe, and there was no threat to human safety. I'm paraphrasing there. Now we have Mayor Tillman saying, I'm not going to count on the TCEQ. You can't count on TCEQ findings to back up the fraudulent report, and then 5 minutes later say, I'm not going to count on TCEQ. You know, it's not Russia, you know, it's not 1984, you know, this is not, you know, you can't just rewrite history. It's like 1984, we're at war with Oceania today and the other place tomorrow, and then switch the next day. That's not the way it works. You have to be consistent. Either the TCEQ is a source to be relied upon, or it's not. And I don't know which. Mayor Tillman is free to move around this country wherever he wants. I have no objection to that, as I'm free to move around this country. I live on an abandoned oil well myself in Marina del Rey, which was oil wells 40 years ago. If you go to build a house there now, the first thing you have to do is get a specialist company in to go down to check if there's an abandoned oil well below you, and they have to remove it. And I've seen it myself, I've taken pictures of it, my neighbours. So I'm perfectly happy to live in abandoned oil wells. My big problem is that I don't have the mineral rights. And that's another reason why, by the way, why a lot of people, you know, people say, why are people against this? And, you know, a lot of people bought 7 acres, 10 acres in these places off these farmers and didn't buy the mineral rights. And, you know, the farmers subdivided and sold a holiday home, and, you know, the rich people from the city and the farmers running around in his 10-year-old car. And then the oil and gas company came to town, and suddenly the farmer is driving a Mercedes and has a condo in Florida, and they're still in their little 7 acres, and they don't have the mineral rights. And by the way, they're bitter, and I'd be bitter too. I want, you know, I haven't quite got the American dream thing of admiring people doing successfully. I have to say, when I see some of these farmers getting these checks in the post, it gets my Irish soul a little bit. But no, but so, you know, people are perfectly entitled to move wherever they are. I live in an abandoned oil well. I'm perfectly happy with living in an abandoned oil well. And, you know, we heard Mayor Tillman talk about nosebleeds and asthma based on a fraudulent study. I don't know, doesn't sound right to me.
All right. Mr. McAleer, this next question is directed directly to you. It's your turn to go first anyway. In case you didn't know it, here in the United States, we respect the titles of former presidents, governors, mayors, and so forth. Do you not know U.S. etiquette in addressing officials? And do you think it's effective to start a debate with personal attacks instead of facts? Or do you have any facts to present?
I am very aware of the etiquette, yes. It's personally, I think it's something, I suppose it's up to every individual. And I don't particularly respect individuals who cling on to those titles. I don't think Rick Santorum should be called Senator Rick Santorum 20 years after he was a senator. I really don't. This is America. You know, it's not the House of Lords. You were a senator in Pennsylvania, and now you run a movie house in Texas, you know, and Governor Mike Huckabee. Come on, what is this? You know, stop living in your past glories. This is America. But that's just my personal opinion, right? And I have, every time I've spoken, I have referred to Mayor Tillman as Mayor Tillman. I have respected the etiquette. I think that I would question the people who would be asked to be called Mayor Tillman, or, you know, asked to be called Governor Huckabee. I think it's something that I was surprised by many Americans. You know, it's something that I found strange. And it's not a personal attack, actually, it's a political attack. It's a, you know, it goes to the nature of people holding on to something that's not real. And holding on to this, like he carries this around with him. Can you believe that? He carries that around with him. He's like, you know, one of these baseball players who was injured, you know, before he could get into the majors, and he carries this around with him. This is fake. This is not real. This is put around by a woman who thinks she has a PhD. These people here will tell me how difficult it is to get a PhD. It's a woman who said she was an engineer. Now, I don't know, in Texas, I believe that it's actually illegal to call yourself an engineer. It's not just a fake, a fraudulent thing. It's actually illegal because an engineer is a very serious qualification. You build things that may fall down, and if you call yourself an engineer, it can have very serious consequences. So she was actually involved in a criminal matter. I'm not sure if it's criminal, I need to check the law, but it's a very serious matter. Wolf Eagle Environmental Engineers. I mean, really? Yeah, no, you could call it anti-American if you want, but I think the one thing about being in America is you could be anti-American. You can call it anti-American. It's not something I find particularly palatable, people holding on to these titles. But I do have respect Mayor Tillman all night, and I will continue to respect that etiquette. Thank you.
Mayor Tillman?
Well, just so everybody knows, I've had the handle Mayor Tillman for quite some time. Actually, on my email, it's actually Tillman for Council. And so I've had that email ever since I served on City Council. So I don't get rid of things that easy, I guess. And you know, once everybody knows your Twitter feed and things like that, it's a little difficult to start all over. So I wouldn't, you know, and actually my friends can call me Calvin, Phelim. I prefer you not, but I'm just kidding. You can call me Calvin. But
Thank you, Mayor.
But you know, while we continue on the subject, I think that we all do want to get this hashed out, because this is obviously the center point of your argument on this, and we're not going to we're going to keep hashing this out. So this is the TCEQ memo that was written on October 27, 2009. It was written by Shannon Etheridge, MS, SE, Toxicology Division, Chief Engineer's Office at TCEQ. And we'll go to benzene, which is the sexy chemical. None of the monitored concentrations of benzene exceeded the short-term health-based comparison of 180 parts per billion. 3 potential 1-hour maximum concentrations of benzene exceeded the short-term health-based comparison value of 180 parts per billion since 1 hour, and they give 3 locations. Actual monitored concentrations were 10.7 parts per billion, and 12.3 parts per billion, and 77.7 parts per billion. 3 subacute animal studies as reviewed by NATSDR and TCEQ reported an adverse hematological effect of inhalation at 10,000 parts per billion of benzene. All other reported health effects from short-term benzene exposure occur higher than concentrations ATSDR 2005. The highest potential 1-hour maximum concentration of 1865 ppb is below the 10,000 ppb. However, it is possible that adverse health effects could occur from exposures to this concentration given differences between animals and humans and possible sensitive humans. It was not possible to determine if the residents were actually exposed to this. So this does say that there could be a concern. And this was written based on a study that Mr. McAleer keeps saying is a fraud, but he has yet to show me a document that actually shows that it's inaccurate, and he does not have that independent study to show that it's accurate that he keeps talking about, but he keeps telling you that it's wrong, so it's like he goes, it's wrong, when there's no evidence to show that it's wrong. And I'll forgo my time.
All right. The next question goes to Mr. Tillman first, and then Mr. McAleer, 3 minutes each. This is from a STEM club member, and the question is, how efficient is fracking?
How efficient is fracking? You may be asking the wrong guy about that. I know through the research that I've done, the wells that have been fracked do drop off considerably after the first year of production. But I'm not going to prove to be a petroleum engineer or anything like that. So, and I'm doubtful that Mr. McAleer will be able to answer that question anyway. But are you professionals?
No, I don't make up my qualifications.
Guys, let's not have interaction between each other.
So there have been a lot of documented media articles that have been out about this bubble that fracking has created, and that right now it's just not financially viable, and so you know, we'll prove to see whether that is true or not. So, but I don't really have anything to add on that.
McAleer.
Fracking is very efficient. It's remarkably efficient. It's very efficient at undermining bad people. More than Mayor Tillman, people scared about the efficiency of fracking in the world are really bad people. Really bad people in Saudi Arabia, really bad people in Venezuela, really bad people in Russia, really bad people in Iran. It's very efficient at scaring them, because it's going to end people's dependence upon them, and it's going to mean that they're no longer going to be able to keep their people in check by repression and bribery. They're going to have to be democratic. It's really efficient, you know, and that's the wonderful thing about it, is that it undermines these horrible regimes. And it's really efficient too. I can't understand people like, you know, Susan Sarandon, human rights. We love human rights. You'll go on human rights. They even give out prizes for human rights. Gay rights, this right, that right, the other right. If you really love gay rights, if you really love gay people, if you love gay marriage, then you must support fracking now. Because if you don't support fracking, you're going to engineer the biggest transfer of trillions and trillions of dollars to Putin, to Saudi Arabia, to Iran, to Venezuela, to Iran, where they hang gay people. They hang gay people in Iran. If you, New York and Pennsylvania, if you're gay, you get a parade. You know, you're the hero. You get one day a year. You know, it's the gay pride parade. In Iran, you get hung. So, you know, it's very efficient at undermining those regimes, and I'm so happy to see that. If you support a ban on fracking, you should have a new bumper sticker. Ban fracking today, hang a gay tomorrow. Because that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. That's the end results.
Mr. McAleer, that is not the question. The question deals with the technology of the efficiency of fracking.
I just heard, is fracking efficient? And it's very efficient. Yes, it is very offensive to hang gay people. I agree. I totally agree. It's terrible. And anyone who supports those regimes, giving them $1, it's terrible. If you want, America is the most regulated country in the world, Pennsylvania, New York. There's no EPA in Russia. There's no EPA in Saudi Arabia. There's no EPA in Iran. So listen, if you want to ban fracking, send all that money over there, that's fine, but know the consequences. And those consequences are very efficient. It works very quickly. Thank you.
All right, before we get to the next question, I want to ask the audience again, do not interact with the debaters. It's taking up needlessly taking up time. We have a lot of questions to ask. So please hold your comments for the questions on paper submitted to me, and I'll refer them to the candidate, to the debater. Mr. McAleer, in FrackNation, you quote the EPA stating that groundwater is okay to drink. If that is true, how do you explain why the paper issuing a consent order against Cabot Oil and Gas for Cabot's contamination of 18 water wells affecting 19 families in Dimmock was not covered?
The EPA announcement, actually it's a video, it's not, I don't quote them, there's an actual video of them giving the results to Craig and Julia Sartner of Dimmock, Pennsylvania, who have very interesting water. I interviewed them, and Craig sat at his kitchen table and told me he has, and maybe the scientists here can help me, 3 types of uranium in his water, 2 of them weapons grade. And he said that on Japanese TV, German TV, is 3 types of uranium in his water, 2 of them weapons grade. And you know, maybe this debate won't go too well, maybe my career's over now, but I know what I'm going to do if I'm forced out of filmmaking. I'm going to go retire, go to Dimmock, Pennsylvania, bottle the water and sell it to the Iranian Secret Service or the North Koreans, because, you know, weapons grade uranium, just bottle it and ship it over there, and I'll retire tomorrow. So this is the kind of nonsense that people come out with. And when I was making FrackNation, I realized early on, it wasn't so much a documentary with fracking, it was a documentary with journalism. The journalists went there, and Craig Sartner sat at the table and said, I've got 3 types of uranium in my water, 2 of them weapons grade. Instead of, I saw you laughing, by the way, you laughed when I said that. And that's the normal reaction. That is the normal reaction when someone says, and I saw some other people, that's the normal reaction. The journalists all sat there, took it down, and sent it around the world as a fact. And it's like, that's nonsense. But, you know, again, I'm going to say something anti-American. Okay, again, I don't mean, you've some great traditions, some bad traditions. Very few bad traditions. One of them is light beer. By the way, I just want to add that. It's a terrible tradition. I don't know where that came from. Stop it now. It's not good. But the other bad tradition is you send your children off to journalism school, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on them, and they come back at Thanksgiving, A, and tell you you're evil, and B, tell you they've lost all their common sense. They go to journalism school and come out, and they go to a table in Pennsylvania and say, someone says, I've got 3 types of uranium in my water, 2 of them weapons grade, and they write it down like it's a reportable fact. It's not. It's some guy in Pennsylvania saying I've got 3 types of uranium in my water, 2 of them weapons grade. So, the EPA is the final word. The federal EPA came in and told Craig and Julie Southman and the other 17 families that their water was safe to drink. That's the final word on it. I haven't seen any scientist come in since then with a further conclusion or questioning those findings. They had independent scientists that they've never released those reports from their own independent scientists in Pennsylvania. They had the local DEP, they had the federal DEP. You also have saying in America, 3 strikes and you're out. That's 3 independent scientists said the water in Dimmock was safe. That's what I put in FrackNation.
All right, before Mr. Tillman says that, I just want you to know, my laughter was at your delivery and and not the content of your comment, but the fact that you made it. So, no,
I withdraw that.
No,
I withdraw the allegation.
No offense to you.
I withdraw.
All right, Mr. Mayor Tillman.
You know, when in the movie FrackNation, which I just recently saw this past weekend, there was the statement that Mr. McAleer made in the beginning was to find the truth about fracking. That was what he said that he was out to do in the film. He also accused other filmmakers, who I won't mention, of cherry picking of the facts. And I told you in my intro that he had done the exact same thing that he accused others of. So when he set up to interview the people of Dimmock, it has been reported to me from the people who live in Dimmock, who were part of this area, that he told them that he was a journalist trying to save Ireland from fracking. So he told them from the he lied to them from the get-go in order to get them to interview with him. And that wasn't just reported by one of the folks. He only used the Saltners in the movie, but there was others that he interviewed that he told the same thing to. So it wasn't to find the truth about fracking. So let's make sure that we don't think that that's what that film was made for. He brings up the Saltners, and of course I know the Saltners. I've met the Saltners. I'm not going to comment on their water or any of that sort because I just don't know the specifics of that. But I will say this. In the film FrackNation, there was a very graphic scene that Mr. McAleer referred to where Craig Saltner was given the results of the EPA findings that said his water was fine. And he got upset about that. However, the portion of the video that Mr. McAleer edited out was the portion where Craig Saltner got a glass of water for the EPA employees that were there and asked them to drink it, and they refused. So why would they refuse something if it was good to drink or safe to drink? I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I couldn't probably interpret a set of water tests and say that yes, this is bad or yes, this is not. But I'm pretty sure that the EPA could do that. And so they would probably know whether they should drink or not drink that water, but that was edited out of the final cut.